Welcome to the Princeton Podcast, your go-to source for everything happening in and around Princeton. Join your hosts, Zach, Mary, and Kim, three locals who live and work right here in Princeton, as we bring you the latest events, exclusive interviews with local businesses, and stories that make our town special. Your community, your stories, your podcast.
So, welcome, Steve and Troy, to the podcast, both members of the Princeton Fire Department. I thought we'd start by, if you guys could each tell us about your positions on the fire department. So we've got the chief and a captain here.
Okay. So the chief and we were just talking about off air about the analogy I like to use is that since we're in the football season, the chief is kind of like the general manager, and the assistant chief is like the head coach, and then the captains are like the coordinators. It's my job to oversee the finances and make sure, that's number two. Number one, make sure we're well-staffed and our firefighters are very safely trained. Mm-hmm. And then oversee the finances and take care of HR and personnel stuff and decide whether or not it has to go up the chain to city office.
Okay.
And how long have you been chief?
In Princeton since July 25th.
Fairly new.
Yes, but I have 14 years of previous experience as
That's
chief.
amazing.
So.
Yeah. Where was the previous years at?
Northern America, in Carver County, Southwest, just on the southwest edge of the metro area.
Nice.
And you have even more years of experience in the firefighting.
Yeah, actually, I've been doing this since 1984, so in some capacity.
Yeah. What about you, Troy?
Well, I started my career in 1995 down in Brooklyn Center,
Okay.
and then moved about 9-10 years down there and moved north. So been Princeton firefighter since then. So
Okay.
I've almost got, 29, 30 years in.
Wow. So you guys, we have some experience sitting at this table.
We do.
All right. Yeah. So, are captains, are there a number of captains then usually in a fire department, depending on number of firefighters?
Yes, we have 5 captains on the Princeton Fire Department.
Okay. Okay.
Then the rest of us just rank of firefighter.
Okay. And how many firefighters do we have in Princeton right now?
I think we're at 34 total.
34, yeah.
Wow.
Maybe bringing 1 or 2 more on soon.
Okay. Okay. And how do you determine when you need to grow your fire department?
So you kind of look at your whole big picture as far as how many years of service, who can leave. You have to factor in the turnover rate, that has now increased, it's increasing. Or average years of service before they leave is, I think statewide is like 7.5 years in the fire service. So you have to, it's a thing you develop a feel for. Mm-hmm. There's no good pattern. You always keep an open spot or two for in case somebody drops in your lap from other departments.
Right.
And also, if there's someone that says, I can respond 24/7, or I can respond to all the day calls. So day calls
seriously?
you watch out for a lot. If you can find that responder, you want to have a spot for them. You don't want to lose them and let them change their mind.
Because that's the most difficult area
That's
to
the
find.
biggest
Yeah.
need, that need continues to increase.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
It's someone for the day.
daytime, yes.
Daytime.
Yep.
So going into daytime versus nighttime, maybe, because one of the questions we have are like, what are the most common emergencies, calls that you guys get? Like, what are we going to? It's like, if I were to walk into your guys' office and just sit through your day, what would it look like for those types of calls? Like, majority of them are blank, and then we have a fire here and there, or is it?
Well,
does it
first
go?
of all, maybe we should talk about our day.
Yeah.
So I'm a 0.5. My position is 0.5, so I'm supposed to work 20 to 25 hours a week. Troy, on the other hand, is strictly on call. Mm-hmm. So we don't have, most of the time, we don't have somebody sitting at the station. Mm-hmm. All the time, people are leaving their lives, putting it aside, whatever that they may be doing at that time, and going to these calls. So,
How does that work? Like, how is everybody alerted?
Well, we all have, we carry a pager.
Okay.
And it's a little black square pager that clips to your
The
belt.
old pagers.
The old
Yeah.
pager. Some new technologies come out where we have apps that will also alert us
Okay.
and give us the address and mapping. So in the last few years, we've got technology boosted and helping us out where if you forget your pager home, you always have your phone.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
a good backup.
Yeah, that is nice. And so most of the firefighters, I mean, they're volunteer and working other jobs. And so how does that work with your employer? It's something you work out, or?
Well, I got a don't ask, don't tell with my employer. But usually I'm working in the cities, so I'm not responding while I'm at work.
Okay.
we do have several firefighters that are able to leave work, and we totally appreciate their employers doing that. That's a tremendous asset, and Princeton is very fortunate because we do have enough people that are in that situation that we do have a good response during the day. We're not. There's a lot of departments in this area and statewide that don't have that luxury. They may have one or two people in town during the day to respond to calls.
Wow.
So
That's
But-
kind of scary when you think of it.
yes, and that's where the mutual aid agreements and everything come. They probably know that they're down that far, so when they get dispatched, they'll let dispatch know, hey, Captain 1 will be responding solo. Please start the neighboring community.
Okay.
Or alert them that we may need assist, even on a medical. So
Okay, yeah, that was my next question is about, how you work with other fire departments and
everybody's in the same boat.
Yep.
So as the Gophers say, we'll be rowing that boat together.
right.
So
Yep, exactly. So what are some of your typical calls, would you say, in Princeton?
that's Troy's.
Yeah.
Well, we run about 50-50 between fire emergencies, accidents, false alarms, fire alarms, and medicals. So we've got a good balance going of helping, with the medicals of heart attacks, strokes, or whenever ambulance is needed, we try to get there too.
Oh, okay.
Lift assist, we do a lot of lift assist to help because it takes more than two people sometimes to help a person up out of a bad spot or just need assistance.
So whenever there's a 911 emergency, that pretty much dispatches.
No, not exactly. Otherwise, we'd get really burnt out.
Right.
Because we do have to take time off of work to
Yeah.
go to these emergencies. So we've kind of weeded out some of the stuff that's not emergency, but they do need medical care. If the ambulance typically is not going code red or code 3 red lights and sirens, we really probably don't need to assist.
Okay.
So we try to get to the major emergencies the most to help, but not the ones with I've just got a headache or I'm feeling ill.
Right.
And if they trouble breathing or if they're dispatched by North, they'll tell our dispatchers if we need us to.
So it's really the communication with the dispatcher as to
Yeah.
what the emergency might be
Yeah.
and whether or not you go.
Or the PD calls, say, hey, I need help here too.
Okay.
With a lift assist, we'll help them.
So it's really working all together with all the emergency services.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a big collaboration between EMS, ambulance, dispatch, and police and sheriff's department.
So when you say that you have to go with break in here too, I'm asking all these questions. When you said like an ambulance has to be dispatched and they may need assistance, so what kind of training do you guys have to go through to help with medical type of things?
So there's basically 3 levels of training in the fire service and emergency response service. You have EMR, which is emergency medical responder, which is the minimal training to be a firefighter for
Okay.
Princeton. And we do take care of that training. The next middle level is EMT. And so the EMR is about 40 hours training. EMT is about 120 to 140, not counting your ride-alongs on the ambulance. And then there's your paramedics, and that's basically 2 years to be a paramedic with that training.
That's just the medical side of training.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. You
And
guys have a lot of training.
Troy can address the becoming a firefighter training. Or I can. It's up to you.
Sure. To be a firefighter, first initially you have to go through your probationary period, which will send. In that time, we'll send you to a school or a class that makes you state certified to become firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and hazmat certified as a, we call it hazmat, not operations level, and also your EMR. So as you're becoming a firefighter first time, you are pushing into school for a fast track on a year of training through probably 80 hours at least.
I think your 1 and 2, the 1001 class they call it, or the academy. Mm-hmm. That's closer to 100 hours.
Oh,
so
back 30 years ago.
So it's
Yeah.
Then that's part of the
less.
problem the problem recruiting.
Right.
Is it's such a tremendous time commitment, especially that first year, because you'll have, I think the hazmat is an additional 20 hours. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at probably 150 hours of training outside the department training. Mm-hmm. So then they'll, whenever they're not are not attending these classes, and if we have something going on, we ask them to come to our training too. Mm-hmm. So that first 6 to 9 months, for sure, is, I'm short on words right now, but I would say god awful. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
And if you have a family, and a lot of these folks are men and women are just married or
Yep.
just in a relationship or just have kids.
Yep.
It's so overwhelming to look at that while not being in it. Once they get in it and get going, they absorb it, and the family kind of gets, they find a way.
Right.
And
Does the training have to be done within a certain time? Because you're saying like how many
Yes.
hours, 100 hours, 150 hours.
Yeah.
And when someone says that, like, I want to go into this, they are from there propelled into it, or are they go into signing and then part of the,
the training will
starts
be
after,
all
or?
set up.
Okay.
Typically, like we already know, we're in the process of hiring 2 potential firefighters. We already know that the training academy, which takes care of the firefighting 1 and 2 and the hazmat, is already set up for early February. It's with Malacca and I think Foston.
Forston. I think the name, There's a big group of local departments that are.
Yeah, we send
Getting
out
together.
everybody to
Everybody does it together.
collaborate and then so that's all laid out, and then after that, then we warn them. Well, after that, then you're going to be going for 40 hours of classroom for the EMR. So that's all laid out. So
Then how much department versus like outside department training is there?
Troy.
Well, we encourage there's schools going on all the time now,
Right.
even online schools, which we encourage people to grow as firefighters to keep training and keep learning. Mm-hmm. There's so many new techniques and ways of doing stuff that we need to grasp and bring back to the department to make it easier on our jobs.
Right.
And so there's state schools several times a year with a variety of topics like car extrication, building construction, hose lines, pumping, you name it, they've got it. Mm-hmm. Leadership is another big issue or big focus on progressing people to be leaders in the fire department.
Right.
So there is a lot of training available,
Yeah.
and we do encourage it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How do you guys train physically and mentally too to go into a house that's on fire, right? Like you can't always simulate, at least not on you can, but like how would you train, or how do you guys train that part of your job?
Well, we do try to get some live burn training. One of the requirements for firefighting is to, hope they're not calling us.
Wow. Let's see what's going by here. Oh, ambulance.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the pager.
I know, I was too.
It might happen, yeah.
Yeah, turn it up a little.
So one of the requirements is live fire training to be a firefighter. So what we do is take an abandoned house and take all the bad stuff out, like asbestos, and that has to be removed. Then we just use hay and pallets as kind of a safer environment. And you have to go in and you watch the fire build and you put it out. That's part of it. And we try to get as many those burns as we can, but it's getting fewer and fewer houses that are being abandoned, and we can actually live train on them.
Right.
So with watching it build, what else? I mean, what does that mean from a
So you learn fire behavior as you do, as it gets hotter. It goes up the walls, across the ceiling, then down. It's basically watching fire behavior from the incipient stage to
Got it.
Flashover.
flash. Yeah,
Hopefully, well,
Yeah,
you
we
don't
wanna
want to
get
be
it
in there in a
before.
flashover. But
flashover is when everything in a room just combusts at once
Oh,
within a few seconds. And
reaches
it's-
that temperature.
Yeah.
at a certain temperature, it'll do that.
The whole room, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Is there a certain temperature? Like, by chance, just off the cuff, just
You know, I
1200.
I was going to say it must be
It
hot.
depends. It depends on the fuel that's in there. So what happened is what's burning, the unburned fuel becomes smoke, rises up and goes and develops layers over the top, and it comes down, and then but it keeps heating and warming, and BTUs are going into it, and then as it comes down, it heats, and then reaches that flash point, wherever it is for that fuel, that's unburned fuel that's there. When it reaches that flash point, then you have a flashover.
got it.
And
Explosion.
oftentimes you'll see too where, on TV or whatever, where there's just gallons of water being poured on a fire, and it doesn't seem to be.
So number one, don't reference TV. when you
Okay.
talk about fire.
All right. Yeah. The news.
It's good, but yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like, sometimes if it's like the fire, water isn't even touching it.
Well, there's so much heat and so much energy being given off during this process of burning that water is put on to cool. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to remove the heat from the fire. That's our goal. It was there's the fire triangle, fire tetrahedron, whatever you want to call it. We're trying to remove one of those elements. Hopefully, that's one of the reasons you're taught to, when you leave a room, if there's fire behind you, shut the door, trying to starve it of oxygen.
Okay.
But our water is to cool it. That's
so
all-
it's not necessarily to put the flame out. It's just
it's removing the heat,
essentially,
and that's how it does it.
essentially, yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
But
So and it turns to steam then.
yes,
So
but that's why when you see that gallons of water going on, it's
Yep,
not necessarily going.
yeah, it's not. It's that, and that's where you put the foam on. Then you're trying to suffocate it
Okay.
also. And so.
So do you guys remember your very first call?
Actually, I did. Not my first one ever, but my first one in between. This is my third department. So, funny story is my first call on my second department in Norwood Young America was for a young child. I think it was like a 13-month-old girl. Fell out of the second story.
Oh,
At just residential, I'm like, holy. Turned out to be one of our firefighters. She had pushed the screen out of their window and decided to crawl up there, and down she went.
the
And
firefighter?
No,
Oh, the 13-month.
the 13-month.
Oh.
Just old enough to walk and
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's not hurt because it was a second story, but it was only like 5 feet.
Okay, yeah.
Not hurt. Okay, I was like,
I know.
So, yeah.
What?
So,
The first story must have been kind of underneath the ground a little bit.
so the reason I remember that call is the young gal is now 20-some years old. but
Right.
I grew up she grew up in the fire station, and I said, every time I'd see her, I say, you were my first call here.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Wow. You remember your first call?
Maybe not the exact first call, but I remember the first call I got to drive.
Oh.
So we get, I think it was a fire alarm call, and we get to the station, and there's the fire captain and the district chief and another firefighter, and they say, you drive. So I jump up in the driver's seat, start the truck up, and in this old engine, right next to the stick shift was where you put it in a pump gear. And I got the captain next to me. The district chief is behind me, and another firefighter. And instead of putting it in drive, I put it in a pump gear.
So what does that mean?
So that means that the pump engages. You can't drive the truck anywhere, so the pump engages so you can pump water.
Right. And so it has to be.
So you're stuck there
Yeah.
until you undo everything. And the captain looks at me and goes, boy, we're going to have to lay a lot of hose to get there from here. Oh, I was so nervous. So I finally got us straightened out and got us on the road. But
That's like a lot of holes.
crazy.
That's funny.
Is it a lot to get it out of the pump?
when you're nervous and scared, and
Yeah.
you just got to kind of switch it back.
Uh-huh.
It takes a minute or two
Yeah.
for everything to wind back down.
Yeah.
To go, but yeah, that was my first driving call.
What's your most unusual call that you've been on?
Oh, I've been on parachute stuck in power lines.
Really?
Parachute.
Or
Yeah,
Someone had-
shooter.
parachuter.
And he's just hanging there from a tree or a power line?
Actually, we were lucky when we got there. It had released him. It had worked its way down.
Well, he's lucky.
Yeah, but yeah, that was I still remember that one for whatever reason,
Yep.
just because it came over the pager and it's like, really? So, but there's
Yeah.
been a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, but Troy, go ahead.
I was sitting at the fire station, Brooklyn Center, and the phone rings. We weren't paged out, and I answered the phone. And the guy goes, "I got a request. Do you have a ladder truck?" I says, "Yeah, yes, we do." He goes, "Well, my bird's stuck in a tree." I'm like,
His what?
"Bird?"
Bird.
What?
I'm like,
Stuck?
"Well, yeah." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, my cockatoo big parrot, which is about 2-3 feet. It was I guess a real rare, expensive parrot. It got out of the house and flew up into the tree next to the street." He goes, "Can you bring a ladder truck over and maybe climb up there and retrieve it?" I'm like, I gotta call the chief.
Yeah.
Call the chief. He goes, "Whatever. He goes, take another firefighter with you if you can get one, and go help him out." So we do, and take the ladder truck out. And well, at first I had to call a buddy, going, "Hey, got a problem. Somebody wants us to come get a bird out of a tree." What? Finally convince him it was real.
bird out of a tree.
Yeah. So we go there, we put the ladder up. He climbs up there, and just as he gets to it, it flies away.
Yeah.
And then flies into the park, and we can't do anything. So it's
Did
just
you
like,
hear if he ever got it back?
never heard back if he retrieved it or not. But it was so far off the street, into the park, that we couldn't chase it down. So
Sorry, bud.
Oh,
sorry I couldn't get your bird out of the tree.
that is bizarre.
Do you got any fish in the water you want me to get?
Well, that's got to be the most unusual animal rescue.
Well, we didn't rescue, but
Yeah.
we attempted to.
Uh-huh.
It's not in the tree anymore.
No.
Mission accomplished.
I mean, I feel like there's that stereotypical, will you get my cat out of the tree?
Done that, too.
You have done it.
Yeah, we did it here in Princeton a few years ago.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I took some rookies with the ladder truck, and we, it was a good practice and good for, I think, public relations, because they were so happy to get their cat back.
Yeah.
You've never seen a cat skeleton in a tree ever, so
Yeah, right.
they do come down.
They
but
do.
So
They were happy.
I can relate to that. Just my first day in the office here, just looking around, and all of a sudden, phone's ringing on. And I'm like, well, I guess I should answer that. It was for a cat in the tree.
It was.
Yeah.
First one here?
Yeah, first day in the
Princeton?
office here. I'm like, oh boy, what have I gotten into?
This is the excitement.
So then
We have a lot of parks, so
Yeah.
I mean, this
And I just said, hey, how about you just put some cat food in, as far up in the tree as you can reach, and don't look at it for a while. Mm-hmm. Never heard back from them, so and I've had 3 calls similar to that since I've been here in 6 months.
3.
Really?
Pretty good.
Well,
That's
I've got a cat story.
I think I've heard this one.
Well, we were at a structure fire, a trailer house. It was kind of an abandoned trailer, and we're putting a fire out, and all of a sudden I see this cat go under the trailer. So I grabbed it and brought it to the owner, and it bit through my leather glove and pierced the skin.
wow.
And the owner looks at me and goes, "That's a feral cat. It's not ours. They're just around here." I got bit for no reason. So the fire chief goes, "Well, we're going to have to think about this. I think you're going to have to go in for rabies shots because we don't know that the cat is not."
Right.
So I had to go into the
Get
hospital.
out.
Series of 30-some rabies shots. To
Wow.
You're kidding.
just trying to help. Yeah.
30. Oh, my
I try not to pick
gosh.
up cats anymore.
No
Tell somebody else to do it.
Right through the glove, huh?
Hey, yep, right through the glove.
Hey, is this your cat? Nope. That's nope.
Yep.
I saw that thing eating some crazy stuff the other day. Had some foam from his
Yeah.
mouth.
So
Is that an all-in-one shot type of deal, or you have to come back for a series?
There's a series.
For how long?
I think I had 2 series. It's about 30 shots.
Gosh, that's what I've heard. But I mean, that's better than the alternative.
The alternative was
Yeah.
dying.
Yep, exactly. Potentially. Yeah.
All right. Let's take this time here for a quick break, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Cool. Crystal Cabinets specialize in custom, high-quality cabinets right here in Princeton, Minnesota. They provide personalized options for independent dealers here in the U.S. and in Canada. For more information, check out the website at crystalcabinets.com. Crystal Cabinets, a fine name in cabinetry. And we'll pick up from here.
Yeah.
No, but in the second part, I'd like to just cover a few more stories that
Yeah.
are either intense, funny, or just, the craziest fire, or the weirdest position you had to pick somebody up or find somebody in, or, anything that
I
comes
can
with-
tell you that my grandma, who recently passed at 95, she accidentally hit her button, whatever it was, many times where the fire department had showed up at her place, and she's in the shower or whatever, and the fire department's trying to get in because she's not answering. And so
Yeah.
how many of those do you get?
Fair amount. I mean, accidental trips, accidental alarms. It happens. If comical story, in my old department, we had an elderly lady that was stone deaf, and she still lived at home. We'd get called there once in a while for pendulum, alert. The first time we got there, it was kind of like, oh man, there she's laying. She's laying back in her recliner, and there's a cat laying right on her chest. So, but we can't get in, so the deputy had to.
Oh, you can see this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're like, well, is she breathing? The cat set it off.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, but if you hit the fall and I can't get up,
Yep.
the alarm company also calls to make sure it's an actual emergency
Okay.
while we're en route.
Okay.
And we do get canceled that way a lot of
okay.
times. But if they can't find the phone, then it's an issue.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So it
But-
doesn't delay it at all. It just
No,
It just-
they're
you
just
could be
trying to
canceled.
get confirmation.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is a little off in the right field, but with the fires in California and all of that, like, I've had conversation with friends and family and whatever, but I just, from your guys' perspective, since you guys work in this, department, like, what are your thoughts on it? What is like the plan behind it if something like that were to happen in a local area? Like, it's chaos in the sense, and it's ruined many people's lives, but just, I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts, since you're, again, in that side of things, that's your work, and just your point of view on it. Maybe how you would handle it, or how does something like that keep growing through cities? And
I've had a situation that nearly came that, but we were able to get the brush fire under control. Those are special situations, but by the same token, these things are kind of planned through beforehand. Just to, you'll see that off somewhere, some grasslands or brushes being cut. It's to knock down that fuel load. Those are fire barriers, basically. So, remember the fire triangle. We're taking away the fuel. So hopefully we're not in a situation like LA.
Right.
I don't think that would ever happen here, just because of the fuel load and the natural stops. I mean, we have a river that helps.
Yep.
The highway helps a lot. It's going to have to jump that. And it can, but I don't think people should worry about that.
No, more so just like how does it go from city to block to just traveling so much?
Yeah.
Coming from like you guys, like
It's so dry.
So dry.
The wind.
So wind.
the wind.
Carrying the heat, the radiant heat, you just can't.
Yeah.
You can't put enough water on it to
No.
stop it.
So like all the winds coming off the ocean, you're saying is just blowing that fire like on just the fire like on a fan, and it's not gonna.
Skipping houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
It's
would see
getting-
on the news like huge embers coming
Yeah.
from the sky that were falling on homes, and
And
then the wind, and
we see it when we're at a brush fire, a grass fire, how it can spread. In my previous department, we were at a large cornfield fire, uncombined corn, but it was harvest time. Extremely low humidity also plays a big part, and it was windy, and we had 7 different fires going in this field, and then we'd see another one pop up because the unburned fuel goes up, starts moving, ashes, embers, and then it just settles down, and everything starts like that. Plus it's preheating as the wind blows that way.
right.
So everything is warmed up, dried out, waiting for that spark, and the wind takes care of it.
So the
It's-
California fires, I mean, they're just set up for
it,
for it to get carried away.
just
easily.
like it's basically like a forest fire.
yeah,
It's the same thing.
yeah,
Similar situation.
Yeah.
If you have the fuel, you have the heat, all you're waiting for is a spark.
right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know if you guys had conversations or when you guys see fires in other places, if it's something that you guys talk about, like, man,
So
this or that, or
on a windy day, and Troy's been first on scene many times, and I have too, where one of your immediate concerns is exposures, we call them. Where could this fire go? Can it get to the next building? Our objective when we get to a fire is obviously life safety of the firefighters and also of the resident. Is everybody out? Good. Now, where is this fire going? How can I stop it from spreading to the next building is our first concern. Then we work our way back to the seat of the fire and go from there. So if you have a second structure on fire, you want to take care of that one, get some water on the exterior of that before it goes into.
Yeah.
So it's loss mitigation is what we do.
Yeah.
We try to, whenever we get called, whether it's a medical or a fire, our goal is to stop it from getting worse and then start to fix the problem. So,
right?
So I did see people like with their garden hoses up on their roofs and stuff, and I thought, I wonder if that's helping, because it was so out of control.
Yeah, I guess if you keep one spark off, and
Right. Yeah.
I think don't they have a lot of tile roofs out there? So
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's
that
helps.
helps too. But the radiation heat and the winds, it just pushes
Yeah.
that heat, and you can't control it.
Right.
And it's kind of a seasonal thing around here. Like in the fall, if people clean their roofs, because your shingles aren't going to start on fire that quick. But the leaves, the dried leaves that have cluttered in the corners, they're going to start on fire. Same with along your foundation of your house where you have the flower beds and that. If you can get that vegetation out of there, and especially the leaves that blow in, there's that certain time of year where it's the opportunity is there.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
So,
I definitely have that.
Question for you guys: in that season of dry season, in the fall or spring or whatever it is that we get, how often, or do you see it happen often, where somebody is burning miscellaneous stuff or garbage at their house, and then all of a sudden they started their neighbor's field on fire or something
All
like
the
that.
time.
All the time.
Too much.
Too much.
Really?
So with that, one, do you guys have some stories, or two, but like, what are some things that you could share with the audience too? Is like, hey, if you're gonna burn anything, or if you even think about this, or during a dry season, or what are some ways that, or just don't do it absolutely at all, or like what?
That's actually funny you should say that. My old department again, but we had a gentleman in that dry fall. I think it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was really dry, and he burned, or he cut it, or had a tree piles right next to a swamp. You know, we won't go into whether it needed to be burned or not, but he lit it on a Saturday, and it was a quiet night, burned, and went out and checked it Sunday morning. It was, couldn't see any smoke, thought it was out. The winds picked up and blew those, got the embers going
Yep,
again, and
heated
blew
it
it
up.
into a large marsh that was dried out, cattails.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the wind drove that across, jumped the highway, and we had a house, exterior house with siding melting, which was a half a mile away from the seat of the fire, where the fire started.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So when you think it's out,
It's
not necessarily.
and the moral is, if they're telling you not to burn, don't burn.
Yep.
Yeah, best
pretty
best way is to
simple.
get online and check with the DNR
Yeah.
on the website on fire dangers and what is the fire danger scale. Is it
Yeah.
low, high, medium? And if there's no burning, no permits, you do have to get a permit if you're going to have anything more than a campfire
Yeah.
through the DNR. It's a $5 permit, and there's an activation code that you got to go through.
So if you're going to burn brush or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
You
And
have
it's
to have
good
a
for a
permit.
year. It's good for
Oh,
a calendar
okay.
year.
Okay.
Because one thing I've been interested in is for coming like into the hunting season, we've wanted to like clear, the vegetation, the old stuff, and create food plots for the deer hunting. So I was like, we'd like to burn it, but I was like, I don't know how, or I don't want to start the whole county on fire either. So is it possible to like have controlled burns, or have the department come out for a certain thing, or like
You'd have to
how
talk
would
to your
that-
local fire department.
Yeah.
And check it with your DNR.
Yeah.
And get a permit if you're going to do it, and go through their process. And if the fire danger is high, or they won't let you activate that permit, so you cannot. Then you cannot burn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it fascinates me too when we drive past the refuge and they do the controlled burns, and it just yeah.
There's a lot of planning and thought that goes into that.
And right, yeah.
And some of their trails are in strategic spots too, also, because what you wanted to do is burn, towards you. You hopefully not much wind, but you wanted to find the fire to find that spot where there isn't much fuel. So you go from 6 foot high vegetation down to a foot high, and green space, green trails.
Where's it gonna butt into water? Which way is the wind direction
Yep.
coming? How dry
Yep.
is it? How much energy
They're-
is it gonna burn?
We call them fire breaks. They're,
Yep.
You want it to go towards that fire break. Now, if it's windy, it's going to blow right over the top of it,
Right.
like we discussed before. So, and that's why I think it's 15-mile-an-hour winds, and they cut off the burn permit, something like that. But usually, like the people that do the restoration burns, they're the ones that they usually start high humidity days, no wind, or do it in the evening.
Yeah.
Because humidity's coming. It's getting more humid.
Yep.
Yeah.
More humid.
So we
And the
should be
winds are
thankful for
dying.
the humidity, I guess, in
Uh,
some respects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. The whole fire lasting, the embers holding for so long, I can attest to that too, is we had like a little burn barrel, and we were just burning leftover cardboard from whatever, and you would think it would be out after that night, right?
Yeah.
But then the winds picked up, and it rained, and it still had embers when the wind picked back up, and a little bit of smoke would come out of the barrel. I'm like, dude, that's been like 2 days. How is that thing not done yet? And it makes you think about that story of, I had it that night, we burned it, maybe
It's
put
done.
a little human water on it and called it good, and then all of a sudden the next day it's smoking and smoldering, and then the whole county's on
Right.
lit up too. And we lived near I live near and on a bunch of wetland and swamp area, and this has happened to me twice. Driving home, I've seen the ditch on fire, and it's spreading. It's not a purposeful fire, like the ditch is on fire and the cattails are starting to go up. And I jump out and I start trying to put it out because it's at a point where it's still manageable. But then I see it's a cigarette butt with a bottle of whiskey next to it, and it's like, dude, come on! You would have took out like 30 acres of wetland and a couple houses with a cigarette butt. And like I said, that wasn't even like the first time, or but just to be cautious and aware of what you think is done, what you think is out, what your little cigarette butt out the window ain't gonna do anything. But yeah.
One thing they try to in the past, like at cabins around here, you want that at least 10 feet away from around the cabin. You want that green. You don't want trees, and keep your roofs clean. I mean,
Right.
you got to keep them roofs clean. That's
something
you-
I just don't think about.
Yeah.
And the vegetation around your home.
yeah.
Yeah, it's important to clean that out.
Yeah, it's every little thing helps.
Yeah, right. Everything you can
As
do.
the drier it gets, it's the little things that get you.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, in a normal year, it's not going to matter. It's
Yep.
raining, blah, blah, blah. But
those years. Yep.
I've seen where investigated fires, even your charcoal grill, the wind picks up, can blow some
yeah.
embers. And I remember in town a garage caught fire because the embers from the grill got picked up and probably got set in a corner of the garage or the wood siding and smoldered, and all of a sudden
or
it
in
was
the
on fire.
dumpster, you put it in the garbage cart.
Yeah. Yeah, and is this
Next to your house.
like so whenever there is a fire, that's part of the process is that you do investigate and try
Every-
to figure out
every fire.
every fire.
Has to be investigated.
Wow, that must be a process.
It can be. I think Troy and I have both done them. And even the professionals, and I'll use that term, with the state fire marshal's office, most fires you don't know, undetermined.
Oh, okay. You just can't figure it out.
You can't rule it out.
Right.
You have a good idea. You have two possible scenarios. If you have two possible scenarios, you can't determine what definitely did it. But our goal usually is to rule out the nefarious,
Intentional
yeah,
Right.
And any fire we have, we can call the state, and
Yep.
they'll send a fire investigator to
Yep.
help us out,
Especially if you think there's been something.
correct.
or a high dollar loss. We'll bring them in. So
What would you say is the most common reason behind a house fire?
Cooking,
cooking, and
yeah, cooking,
statistics say cooking.
and then I think auxiliary heat is a big one. Just the highest cause of fire death is smoking in a bed.
Still?
Still, so,
That is surprising to me.
or I should say, the causes of that
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
I mean, fire deaths obviously can be related to
Right.
not
But
being-
wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, yeah, people there's a lot to think about here I just think about my own home and things that I could do better for sure.
Keep 3 feet is basically the general rule is 3 feet from anything that cause a fire. But
Right.
like especially auxiliary heat, in this time of year that we just went through it, where some people plug in, and then some people will just put a NIPCO heater in or a Mr. Buddy in,
Right.
And it just, other than the CO, and
Yeah.
then also.
The main thing is having your smoke detectors and CO alarms
Yes.
in your residence working.
And checked, yeah.
Yep.
And then they are both only good for 7 to 10 years. So watch that expiration
Oh.
date and change them out. Get them
Yep.
changed out. It'll save us coming out for false alarms, but it'll also keep you safe.
Right. Okay, that's another thing I got to check. I'm going to go over my whole house now.
I actually just bought some new ones last night.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
CO and smoke.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I got one just for my laundry room too.
Yeah, we definitely need them for sure. We haven't bought new ones, and yeah, it's time.
A big thing too is people living in apartments, the older apartments in town, the houses that the detectors aren't connected. If it's going off and you take it off and you set it on your chest of drawers, make sure and put a new battery in, whatever, replace it.
Yeah.
I've been to several fires where we look up and the smoke detector, the bracket is there, but the detector is not there, and you go, oh, there it is, sitting on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It had malfunctioned. They shut it off.
Yep.
Took the batteries out. Older. So
Yep.
make sure they're working. Change the batteries once a year, at least. Usually when you change your clock.
Yep.
If you do it when you change your clock, you're in good shape.
Right. That's a good time to remember to do it.
I mean, we put it. That's a lot of PSAs go out. Public
Yep.
service.
Yeah, they do.
announcements
Yep.
And that's how to remember it.
Yep.
So.
Well, good. Well, I definitely want to respect your time. I know you guys have a busy day. You have a meeting coming up too. So, so I want to thank you guys both for being here. This was really interesting and
We just scratched the surface.
exactly.
I mean,
I know.
Troy's a wealth of knowledge. He's just getting rolling here. He could do one on his
We
own.
could do a lot of funny stories.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we could do definitely another couple podcasts. In fact, I was reading we have a history of the Princeton Fire Department book in here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, and I was looking through that, and downtown is burned several times, and
No.
I mean, we could do a talk. There's a lot of interesting things
So
to talk
what
about
else do you got over there? Like,
for interesting stories.
Boy, we can go on and on about stuff.
bonus round. Here we go.
Oh, pressure.
Okay.
Oh,
How?
jeez.
So are those stories right there?
No, those are just notes from you guys sent over some questions.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just
All right.
filled with notes so I didn't forget.
So I want to maybe it'll spark something for you guys too. But I worked in corrections for 3 years, and working in a jail, you get to. I mean, there's stories that come with that too. So one that I think is always kind of funny is I was working as a rover that day, and I was going around to other pods and helping them out, and then I'd go up to booking and help with booking. And then within booking, we would have all these holding units, and one of them was like, there's nothing in it. It's just it's a toilet and a concrete bed, and it's for people that are either suicidal or just super
Mental
if they're
health.
mental health, or they're gonna hurt themselves. So we had someone in there, and we called it the pickle suit, and it was like a big old blanket. Basically, you wrap him up in it, but he was a very extra person. He was very pretty wild. And I remember walking up there not knowing what was going on, and one of the people in booking were like, "Hey, Zach, you mind taking my tour for me and checking out cell 13?" And I'm like, "Oh, all right, sounds good." Didn't know what I signed myself up for. Also being part of, just new to it and kind of like the rookie, they were setting me
Little
up
hazy.
for setting me up for a fun story. And I go down there, and this guy has taken his pickle suit off, so he's butt naked, and he's smashing his head against the glass, and he's hitting it so hard his head is starting to split open, and he's starting to bleed down his face. And I'm like, dude, I'm only 10 minutes into my shift. What is going on? I'm like, dude, you need to stop. And then he's like, he's not stopping. He's just continuing to do it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And plus he's completely naked. So I'm like, this is also hard. Sir, I need you to stop.
Please
Otherwise
stop.
we're going to have to come in there and we're going to have to restrain you. You're hurting yourself. You're not going to listen. And so I go back up the book. I'm like, this guy is a mess. And they're like, yeah, we should probably take care of that. I'm like, all right, what do we got to do? They're like, well, we need to get in there and restrain him. So they're like, here, buckle up. Here, you get this. We got a wheelchair. We got cuffs. We got the mat, all this stuff. I'm like, all right, so I guess I'm in it. Here we go. And we open up the door, and the team goes in. We get him restrained, and we have to put him in this wheelchair. And it's a restraint chair. I call it a wheelchair. It's a restraint chair. But again, so everyone's got a job, right? You gotta get the hand. One person's got the left hand and the right hand, and someone's got to get the head and the legs. So it's a whole team effort. and this guy is still screaming. He doesn't want to do any of this. He's resisting. He's spitting on everybody, and the captain at this point, he's getting like frustrated, and people are getting spit on, hit, all this stuff. We're almost done. We got like everything starting to get locked down, and my buddy was trying to get his last leg like hooked in. He was wailing, going everywhere. Well, again, like I said earlier, all they have is that pickle suit. If they take it off, he doesn't have anything. So his last resort now was to urinate over the officers. And so now we have this man just feces everywhere, the urine, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not how I want to start my day. And we finally get it all taken care of. And we have the spit mask on now, and everyone's soaked. And then and for what? And then we asked the guy after he calmed down, and he was just like, "Oh, I wanted my phone call." I'm like, "Sir,
There's a different way to go about it.
yeah, like what? Okay,
Did you think of asking?
Yeah. Yeah.
just so he had this whole meltdown
Yeah.
for like just the simplest things, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
That was my first like couple minutes. We had more stories too with this guy. He was a frequent, he was a resident, and the other one too is we give him like there's like these pass-through trade deals. They're pass-through for the tray for the food. He ended up sticking his head through there, got it stuck. He was trying to
Yeah.
escape.
Obviously.
So we ended up having to take all the butter off the tray and rub it around his head and try and push on his head to get it back out. Because he literally got his head stuck, like in the
They didn't
pass.
call the fire department.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was
Exactly.
I'm glad you guys took care of that.
Yeah.
I was like, you got any cocoa butter? What do we got here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just one, but yeah, there was quite a few interesting.
In the
stories.
70 years you guys have been doing it, I'm sure
Yeah.
you've seen some interesting.
There's been some characters.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, most I'm taking to the grave with me though.
Yep. Uh-huh. Yep. I'm sure.
Yeah, I remember guys came back from a call and they're like, "Oh, this little old lady, she's stuck in bed or needed help." They went, and when they got on scene and walked in the bedroom, and the little old lady looks up and she goes, "Man, if I knew I call 911, you guys would have showed up. I would have did this years ago." So they were pretty happy, they were
Yeah.
complimented.
Yeah, that's good.
That's nice.
Those are the fun ones,
Yeah.
They appreciate to help people.
Exactly. Yeah. And you guys do your flower delivery.
Yes, we got that
Valentine's. That's
flower
coming up.
delivery coming up where we go out and deliver Colburn's flowers for Valentine's Day, and we get a lot of PR from that, and a lot of people love it, and it's a good fundraiser for our fire safety program.
Yeah, it's great. Before my grandma passed, I had done that for her a couple years ago, and it was kind of the same situation
Yeah.
where, she just thought it was the best, and she was up at Sterling Point, and so it was
yeah.
really cool. Yeah, yeah. So again, I know you got to get to a meeting, so I'm going to let you guys go.
All right.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for the invite. It was really fun.
Yeah, good, and we'll have to do it again.
Sure.
Yeah, so until next time, this is Kim and Zach. This is Princeton. Stay here, play here.